Welcome back to the channel, everyone. And this video we are talking about part 2 of the lessons of history. So if you wanna be have the ability to peek into the future a little bit, watch this video in its entirety. Previous social experiments have failed, but it could work if it's paired with socialism. And there have been many examples of nations throughout history that have experimented with redistributing wealth through socialism, but all have failed. And the authors believe that socialism could work, but not on its own. Today, socialism is modern, but similar systems have been used throughout history, and none have worked. Take, for example, the Incas of South America. The Incas believed that their sovereign was the delegate of the sun god. All Incas considered themselves to be employees of the state, which controlled and tracked all agriculture, trade, and labor in exchange for food and security. And this combination of socialism and monarchy lasted until Pizarro's conquest of Peru in about 1533. The Russian Revolution of 1917 was the most classic example of a socialist experiment, and this worked because the country was under siege. Individual freedoms was much less important than the country's security. The revolution lasted because of people's continued fear of war. A generation of peace eroded the government, and the USSR failed in 1989. Socialist ideas could be made successful if blended with capitalism. Capitalist societies allow people more intellectual and physical freedom, which leads to a stimulation of production. With modern socialism has limited some of the absolute economic freedom and has encouraged the redistribution of wealth through the welfare state. And the threat of capitalism has encouraged socialist thinkers to broaden freedom, and the threat of socialism has encouraged capitalist thinkers to increase equality. And maybe in the future we could see these two systems merge. War has been prevalent throughout human history, and to us as humans, peace is unnatural. And I believe it's only about 10% of recorded human history has been war-free, which is mind-blowing. And the thing with states usually behave just like individuals, but there are no restraints given to them by the larger society. And individuals compete with themselves for resources such as food, shelter, and land. Violence isn't needed as much these days because the state provides people with basic protection. The exchange is people comply with behavioral codes such as morals and laws. States have the same survival needs, but none of the basic protection. And there are no international restrictions for these states in the form of a superstate, international law, or a moral code that prevents these states from fighting one another. And due to this, war is a natural way to pursue their interests. War isn't always about just securing resources for the state, and some situations are a bit too complex to be resolved through negotiations, which ends up leading to war. Take, for example, in 732 AD, Charles Martel stopped the Umayyad army in the Battle of the Tours, and this essentially stopped the Islamic invasion of France and Western Europe. Europe today would have been drastically different if he resorted to using war. With war, it's sad to say, but war is natural for us and peace is unnatural. States only tend to unite and behave peacefully if they have a common threat. If all states somehow grouped together peacefully, competition would disappear over time, the global alliance would be destabilized from within, and peace will probably never be maintained unless we face an external threat like them. Who knows? Aliens? Civilizations descend, but their accomplishments live on forever and are usually the foundation of a brand new civilization. Democracy and society would eventually go back to zero if we always had to reinvent the wheel or the printing press every 100 years or so. Fortunately for us, history and knowledge can be recorded and built upon over time. And thankfully, the inventions of certain civilizations that have long died are still with us. Things like fire, writing system, and the wheel. Things like agriculture, charity, and morality aren't modern concepts. They all came from the ancient world. And we're so fortunate to have our knowledge base today due to thousands of years of human innovation. We haven't changed much biologically, but we benefit a lot from the innovations of our ancestors. Modern British democracy was built upon thanks to the system that was given to us by the ancient Greeks and is far more advanced because of it. And people in Europe are much freer to express their political ideologies without having a fear of death, and people in the Dark Ages did not have such a luxury. Education used to only be reserved for the extremely wealthy, but now is accessible to most people. The average level of knowledge is much higher today than at any point in human history. But the goal of free education to the masses is still a relatively new concept. And everyone, I'm hoping, everyone will have access to education if it goes well. We're born with richer heritage than anyone born in the past, and this heritage highlights the advancements of civilization. And heritage becomes more and more rich with every new generation. That is all for part 2, yo. They say that history tends to repeat itself, but I think it's more human nature that tends to repeat itself. Like you've come to know, we haven't really changed too much fundamentally, and albeit certain things are different, history it does rhyme. History does rhyme with present day, so hopefully you can peek into the future somewhat with the knowledge that I've given you. And history, one of them topics you gotta brush up on, yo. So with that, I'm out.